Please can you remind me if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm Lori LeBay, your host and founder of Alzheimer Speaks. I'm also the daughter of a mother who lived with dementia for 30 years. For those of you that are new to us and our show here, bottom line, Alzheimer Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. We also help passionate companies expand their brand footprint by leveraging our content to increase access to products, services, and tools to those in need. We believe that collaboration is the only way we're going to win this battle against dementia, and I know that it's working thanks to all of you. You see, your likes, your clicks, your shares with your sphere of influences, be it on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or one of the many other social media platforms that disseminates information, you have elevated Alzheimer's Speaks and gotten us recognized by Oprah, by Maria Shriver and Dr. Oz, and we know that wouldn't have happened without each of you and your likes, your clicks, and your shares. So we really appreciate your support, and we share those recognitions with you because we know we surely did not do that alone. I also want to invite you to be a guest on the show. Everyone is welcome here, so if you have an idea that you would like others to hear about, or maybe you have a book or a business, just let me know and we will have a discussion and see if it's a good fit here on Alzheimer Speaks Radio. Today we are going to be talking with Angela Burrow, and I'm really excited to talk to this woman. She does dementia care training and person-centered workshops, and does coaching with families, and she's just a marvel. Plus, you are going to love her accent. She's British American, but she lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she's been there for 15 years, but she still has that beautiful twang to her voice that makes it oh so easy to listen to. She is part of her local county steering committee to promote dementia awareness and capable community, and she's received her RN nursing degree in Liverpool over in England. She also has a postgraduate practices, including gerontology, long-term care, rehabilitation, midwife, and instruction. So all kinds of talents Angela is going to bring us today. And before we talk with her, I just need to give a shout out to a couple of organizations. I just got back from Indiana and was with their public library system down there, and they were just so gracious. We did some screenings of the film His Neighbor Phil, and I did some training with their nursing staff. And so I want to thank them for all the work that they're doing and their consciousness in terms of how they care. And then to mention that I will be down in Melbourne, Florida for the Center for Family Caregivers is having a free community conference, and I will be in Melbourne from the 15th to the 19th, and then the 26th through the 29th, I'm going to be, actually the 25th through the 29th, I'm going to be out in Spokane, Washington, and you can just go to alzheimerspeaks.com to get more information on that. I also like to mention the Memory Cafe directory as a social resource for people. Just go to memorycafedirectory.com to find one close to you. As well as the Roberto app, which is you can get an extended free trial if you go to our homepage on that, but it measures your brain performance, and it's just a wonderful app that'll make you a little bit more conscious of, one of the most important assets in your body, your brain. So with no further ado, I want to welcome Angela to the show. How are you doing today, Angela?
I'm good, Laurie. And before I say anything, thank you so much for all that you do. You have a huge resume. I don't know how you fit it all in. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, well, thank you. I think it's just a passion thing. You know, when you like what you do, it's easy to do a lot of different things because it doesn't feel like work. It's just, I get the opportunity to meet wonderful people like you doing amazing work. And it's just an honor. Before we start on our line of questions, I do always like to ask our guests if they have been personally touched by family or friends with anyone they know having dementia.
Yeah, my father died at a pretty young age, into his 50s, mid-50s, and he had various things going on, but certainly some vascular dementia. And we think perhaps our maternal grandmother, you know, then we're going back a few years now, they just would say senility. So we think that she had some, and that's it. So luckily, you know, there was no long journey with it. My father died with some other complications. So, and the grandmother was in her 90s. So, so I've been lucky in that respect, but certainly in nursing, I've seen a lot. And when I'm obviously aging myself now, when I did my RN degree way back when, we were warehousing people with Alzheimer's disease. We didn't have day rooms even. We'd just get them out of the hospital bed and sit them in a geriatric chair and make sure they were clean and fed. And often that was it for the day. So we've come a long way for sure, thankfully.
That's a good reminder that we have come a long, long way. Given, you know, your situation with your dad, did that kind of motivate you to get into the dementia realm, or did it just kind of happen naturally through your work?
It happened naturally through the work. I guess a little bit of both, but naturally through the work, because I was right there when I graduated. There was a period of time after I'd done the RN, and I'd already committed to go off and do the midwifery course, which I'm glad I did. I haven't really used it much, and certainly not using it nowadays, supporting people with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. But I'm glad I did it. It was interesting. But I was in kind of the right place at the right time. A few of the new graduates were asked to help to develop some recreation for the people who were living in long-term care. So we opened up what had been a storage room, which sounds awful, but actually when we cleaned it out and we looked further, it was an older Victorian building. It had beautiful windows, and we actually transformed it into a nice area. Still wasn't anything like we have today, but we were going in the right direction. So I kind of got the bug then. And then I carried on in different areas of my career. I worked for a rheumatologist at one point, and I've traveled a lot. So my career has served me well. And then in more recent years, I've really, really got the bug. And my big push is for engagement. You know, I mean, as a nurse, you'd think I'd be making sure they were healthy and fed and all of that. But it's really the quality of life I'm looking for now. Once they're safe and they've had the medication, whatever they need, they've had the shower. It's all the other things. What are they doing? You know, are we having, I guess, briefly, quality of life that we've lacked sometimes? So that's my purpose now, I think.
Okay.
With a lot of the workshop.
Okay. So when you kind of changed your role to dementia support and care, what kind of response did you get from, you know, family and colleagues around you?
Well, a lot of colleagues, they just think, oh, you're going there because you don't want the challenges of something that's real nursing. You know, we're working in an emergency room. So they would kind of in those days look down on what you're doing, which is so sad because that is not the case now at all in the UK, and I don't think it is here. So that was odd, you know, that response. And then more recently, it's been a few years, I've gone into the education role, and people understand that. They can see that I have the passion, have some background, and I'm committed to that. So that part they understand. But going back, when I first went down that route for supporting elders without dementia, just frail people, they were thinking, oh, that's a waste of your RN degree. So I always push back on that, and thankfully I'm glad, many others too, I'm glad that now the geriatric world, gerontology, is the support. You need that as equally as you do someone receiving obstetric care. So, but there's been a stigma. It's definitely been a stigma.
Yeah. Well, and we just don't have a ton of support out there, for the geriatric staff, and for the dementia care, for the demand. And a lot of people don't even know that they can even ask for that those are even categories, that are available to them. So that's a significant, area, I guess, of awareness that we need to work on. How do you personally reach professionals and family caregivers or carers or care partners? There's so many different words out there for all of that people use. But how do you let them know you're there to help them?
Well, I have a good network. The good thing is I've been here now it'll be 16 years in May. So I know a lot of people and I have good relationships. And I'm a big believer, even though I don't think I'm at all in the sales and marketing world, and you might this might resonate with you. You have to put yourself out there. So I do use things like LinkedIn a little bit and Facebook, and then I appear at certain networking events, and the local sales and marketing and community outreach people are always very welcoming. So that's been interesting, and I get the calls. And nowadays, I don't really have to push it too much at all. They call you. And I'm really, really happy because a lot of the community outreach people, especially in the retirement communities and the adult day centers, they know the value of having educational offerings to families and staff. And especially I did something recently. It was like a fusion between the dementia education, some person-centered practice, and a little bit of Montessori, which I'm a huge fan of. Montessori-based programming. So we did a 4-hour workshop with the lunch included, and everyone was happy. And what I was really happy about was there were families in the room, and I was nervous of them the first time I did that, thinking, are we going to be talking over them? But not at all. They were leading the breakout sessions, and they're the people who know. They're on the front line. And it was just very heartwarming. So I don't have to push too much, but I do send out the usual flyers, and I have my big email list, and then I'm a member of different groups and friends with lots of people. So that's in the Charlotte area. If I had to move now to another state, I'd have to start all over again. People book you if you have a good name and they think they're going to get some education and a little bit of encouragement from you. So that's how I do it now. It's easier than it was to reach out. And people are hungry. They're hungry for support. And what I do know as well is a few of the government agencies, and we have lots of good resources here. I'm friends with those people. I meet them for coffee and lunch. And so now I know I'm confident because I know them. So when I do get sometimes calls out of the blue asking for help from family members, I'm not a geriatric care manager, but I can say, well, I know who you can talk to. So I send them their way. So it's actually quite reassuring. Charlotte's not a big city, but it's not a small town either. So
okay,
that's how I do it.
Okay, well that's good to know, because I know there's so many people out there, and it's nice that your professional community is supporting you and that they understand the need families have for this additional support. I think there was a time where that wasn't really truly recognized by many, and they were we'll train our own staff, but they weren't training or supporting families. And families need that information, and then they're easier on the staff when they have that information too.
There you go. I mean, it's not a new idea. I agree, and that is so true. I mean, it's in my career and my recent career. It's definitely not all administrators or community outreach people are open to it, but we're getting there. And of course, it'll have a domino effect. If they see that some of the colleagues or even competitors are doing that, then they'll jump on the bandwagon. But the last person I talked to is one of the big companies that has communities everywhere. And I kind of just said, well, I'd like to have some of your family. She said, I was going to ask you that. So I thought, this is great. So I think we're getting there. I think we're certainly getting there, and they are hungry. What was interesting, this last group, just a few weeks ago, I wondered who they were. I hadn't met the family members. And it was all husbands whose wives had the diagnosis and were living in a residential setting with Alzheimer's. So that was interesting. All the healthy men able to support their loved ones. So that was gratifying, but full of ideas, full of suggestions, and educated. And I was saying, are you okay if I do a little bit of anatomy and physiology of the brain? And they were saying, yeah, bring it on. So we did. It was wonderful. So I want to do more of that. And people around here know that that's kind of the push that I have, and they're open to it. So I'm happy.
That's good. Now, do you have formal dementia-friendly communities in North Carolina where you are?
Well, in the Charlotte Mecklenburg area, that's where I'm part of that. I was part of the steering committee that started about 18 months ago. We are now, we have our official title, Dementia Friendly Charlotte Mecklenburg, and we meet once a month. And of course, we'll meet more often if we need to. So we're just getting ready. We've had a couple of open sessions, so we're ready now to become more formal. So I'm thinking of my ideas so when I go back, because now we're a coalition rather than obviously a steering committee. So we're going to try our best to perhaps form committees. I don't know what you think. We think form committees, and one group of us will outreach to the schools, others obviously first responders, local businesses, that kind of thing. So it's early days for us, but it's taken us a while, but we're ready to launch very soon.
Are you part of the Dementia Friendly America, or are you grassroots Dementia Friendly America? Okay.
Dementia Friendly America, yeah. Dementia Friendly. And we've had good leadership. We when we first started out as a steering committee, we had good support. We went off to Wake Forest, another part of North Carolina, and they were doing well. So we learned from them. We had a group from Minnesota who came down, and so we had good teachers and good guides.
Good.
So now it's taken us a while, though. The steering committee we did lose a few people, but then we gained some. And we've had a couple of information sessions so people know that they've been needed. So I'm excited for us. But as I say, this next meeting will be when we start to think of a logo and where are we going next, and committees. We've had the training, the Dementia Friendly America training. We have our manuals, and because it has to be consistent. You probably know that. So, and you don't want to over teach either. So we're almost there.
Oh, good. Well, that's exciting. It's always fun to hear the different communities and what they're doing. I'm involved in Roseville, and we were part of, we were grassroots, and then we applied for the Act on Alzheimer's money, which was kind of the pilot to the Dementia Friendly America group. And now we're back to our grassroots again. And so we've been going strong for a lot of years, and we have, the city has allotted us space on their website. We've done training with, police and fire and city employees. The library is super active. They have what they call memory minder kits for people who have dementia and their care partners. And then the school district and the senior center is also very active. So it's been a wonderful support. And then we have, like you, probably many people in the community, different types of businesses involved and stuff. So good. Well, kudos.
Well, we may definitely might reach out to you, Laurie, for some of those pointers, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know in the UK they have some wonderful tools that they use for the children, college and younger age, saying how can I be a dementia friend, and they name 3 things that they're going to do. And they promise. I think that's a really nice idea, especially for the grade school children.
Yeah, we've focused primarily on education and haven't gone after the businesses per se, because we just really felt like we needed the base in the community for it to make sense before we approach the businesses. And it's been very interesting. There's also a thing that I don't know if you're aware of, but you might want to make note of, called the purple table reservations. And so that would be one where your restaurants could actually go through this company for their training, so it would lighten the load of what you have to do. There's a real minute fee. It's like $100 and some for a year, but they'll train them, and they have an app all set up, so it's really easy to use for people, and it's very cool. And so they there isn't anything that stands out different, so no one would know when you are seated or anything, but staff are trained how to speak and how to approach and read things and deliver things and put people in a quieter area and all of those types of things that just make it much, much easier. It was developed by a gal who I believe her mom had dementia, and she owns a restaurant. And so it's pretty. Yeah. And it won't be
made
just.
A note of that.
Yeah.
Do they have a website? Purple Table Reservation.
Yep.
Okay.
And like I said, they've had, I want to say requests, and my numbers could be wrong, from people in 42 different states already wanting to know where they can find a restaurant. So the need is there, but now they have to, expand it into the communities and stuff. So that's what they were looking at doing this year. So, but really a cool process there that might be a nice addition to what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good idea, because let's face it, that's such a family time, and it could be spoiled very much, or it could be just something that people avoid because they think they won't get the support. And it's something people are doing 3-4 times a day, going out for coffees and meals and things. So it's similar to the idea, and I bet you've heard of this too, the relaxed lanes in supermarkets. Some supermarket chains in England have them. And just like we have a fast lane, the express lane, or the 10 items or less, it's a slower lane, but I like the word relaxed. And it's not just for people who are frail, elderly frail, or they have someone with them with a type of dementia. It can be for families too, anyone that's challenged. And it's just saying, well, this is going to take longer. It's the relaxed lane. And those staff obviously have some extra special training. So I'd love that to happen. But of course, we've got to meet the guy or the woman at the corporate office, but something we should strive for. Definitely.
Yeah. I like that. I've not heard that relaxed lane. I've heard memory lanes, but I like the relaxed lane because it's like, just let's mellow out. We're going to go a little slower. Yeah. And nothing's going to throw us for a loop. We're just going to get through this process.
And we're proud of it. Yeah, it's been designated for us, so we're not doing anything wrong. Because people, as you know, sometimes if they're standing right behind someone, if you start to rush, then you fumble, then you drop things. So it's just an obvious thing to do, and it's the people who are working at the grocery stores and own these chains of groceries. It's a good thing. It's a civic duty. It's something nice. If they don't have to donate anything, but there is a little bit of training involved, I'm sure. But it's doable. I think it's very doable.
Well, that's nice. I mean, I think of going to the grocery store, and I don't even like doing the self-checkout things because I always screw them up, and my daughter said, "Oh, I just uploaded something to my app, and I can, just check out on my phone." And I'm like, really? Things have just changed so much. It's give me a real person who, will tell me which button to push, because I don't even know that half the time because they're all different,
Yeah. I know. I'm just saying. I know. Well, I really respect your honesty, and I'm going to agree with you. That's the way I am too. And I just wonder, and then you start to sound like your parents. Oh, we didn't do it that way. And
yeah, part of the aging process there. And
I'm trying to adapt. Yeah, I'm trying to adapt, but
well, and it's not. I was just talking with Dr. Cameron Camp and his wife Linda, and they have a new book out, and they were talking about, a lot of times people will blame something on dementia, and it has nothing to do with the dementia. It's just how they do stuff, or how things happened, or the aging process in general. But It's so easy
Right.
for people to go, oh, it must be that. And it's like, well, no, it really wasn't the dementia,
I
you know.
know. Do you know, that's funny because I received my copy of that book. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Cameron Camp, and so I thought, oh, I've got to get this book. I could learn from this. So I've read the first few pages, and I love to do that, you know, just get ideas and reinforce things. I'm a fan of him because of his Montessori-based dementia programming, and I think it's lifeblood. It just makes total sense. So I encourage a lot of people, and that's something that families get involved in, because they can help to create trays or boxes of things that mean something to them. They know the history and the life story more than you do. So I think he's done some wonderful work.
Yeah, and this book is about teaching the person with dementia about empathy and conflict resolution. And a lot of people will think, well, they can't learn. And he's like, well, yeah, they can. Yeah, they can.
Oh, yeah, they can.
We've just taken the opportunities away from them a lot of times for them to learn.
I know. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
No, I was thinking, so he's still very much influenced by Maria Montessori in his writings and everything he does, because I always, when I think of him and the Montessori practice for dementia, obviously it's the inspiration was the children. She was a doctor and specialized in pediatrics, but she had some wonderful sayings, and I think she has one, and he who is served is limited in his independence. That's one of my favorites, and that's what we do sometimes. We rush people along and we don't help them even to wash their own bodies, you know, and that kind of thing. So she's been a great, from her grave, you know, she's been a great influence. And then she says, and I think he's the one who reminded, she says, we take note of all the details of the disease and yet make no account of the marvels of health. So, wonderful. Yeah, I've only just started with that book, but it's not a huge book, so it's nice to, it'll be an easy read. So I'm glad I have a copy.
And Linda, his wife, was a Montessori teacher, I want to say for 15 years or something like that. And so it's it's a nice match up there with that. Can you describe to our audience, you know, when we've talked, you talk about learning from each other. What do you mean by that, and how does that happen?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that, because we have talked a few times, Laurie, and it's just something I get a little frustrated with sometimes. You know, when they'll talk about experts, and it's like, well, really, we're all experts, especially if we've lived through it with families. And then you've got, and I'm certainly not referring to the neurologists. I mean, we know they're experts. Their capabilities are way beyond mine. And so, but I'm talking about day-to-day people. The real experts to me are the people living with it, living with any diagnosis of dementia, and the families who are around them. And that's one of the things that led me, and going back to what we talked about earlier, to have workshops that included family members. And I also have, I don't know if you've met Brian Casonis, I think you've probably talked to him online. He taught me that up front. He has he's out there. He's been on a lot of commercials on TV. And he has his own not-for-profit now that he's forming, Faith to Care. He is a great advocate and educator. He has the diagnosis. He was diagnosed at age 55 a couple of years ago. So he's the person I want to talk to, why he can, and he'll say that, and he wants to. And then, of course, the families, because, as I said before, they know all the nuances, because you're still the same person. So I'm not the dementia, I'm me. You know, it's me. And that's a mistake, especially a lot of us on the front line. We're thinking we've got to get them fed, and the meds are due, and then feeding, and we've got to weigh them and check all these things. There isn't much time left for the person. So we've got to stop thinking about the disease. We certainly have to consider it. So I think it's always asking them. So that's how I'm learning from them. I don't challenge everyone who says they're an expert, but I just think, well, you know, I don't think I'm an expert, because I'm learning new things every day. But they are the people. And it shows you've met one person with dementia and you've met one person, you know. So that's really what I'm saying. It's just a little something that I'm pushing back against, I suppose. We've got to include everyone.
Yeah, we just did that this morning on Dementia Chats. It hasn't aired yet, but I have to edit it. But we were talking kind of about leadership and influencers and innovators, and everybody went to the top of the hierarchy. And I'm like, no, it's every single person is a leader and is an innovator and is an influencer in one fashion or another. They might be a positive or they might be a negative influencer and leader, you know, but we all impact one another. And there's a difference between influencers and decision makers sometimes. And there's a difference between people feeling that they're an expert in a field, and they might have great scientific or medical knowledge, but that doesn't mean that they're a good communicator on a person to person level, you know. So we all have our pluses and minuses, but I think life is just so much easier if we all admit none of us know it all. We're never going to, and there's always something to learn, and there's always something we can teach and that we can share.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I don't always, but if I can, I will say, you know, that person who says, I've been doing this a long time, that person scares me a little bit, because that they're thinking that they have all the answers. But we can, and I was really pleased lately, there was a nice panel that we had at at the temple. We have the Jewish Community Center and Jewish Family Services just a few miles from my house. And we had a wonderful lady who helped to organize that. It was called Navigating Aging. And it was talking 1 week about arthritis, once about Parkinson's disease, and they'd have a panel. The one on Alzheimer's and the other dementias, they had a family member, the wife, the spouse of someone who's, I think, he's still living with it. We had our neurologist that everyone knows pretty well. One of our directors at our local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and then they invited me. So I thought, this is nice, because they've got someone who's going to help professionally with the approaches and just bring all our experience in. Very nice panel, and we got good feedback. So I think we're doing things fairly well in my neck of the woods. But I do get nervous. You know, you see things nationally, a renowned expert, and thinking that, to me, means you're not really open. You've closed the door and you've got all the knowledge. But with something like this, you're learning every day. Learning every day.
Well, and if you're not learning, you're getting behind the 8 ball. You know, you're getting stagnant. And I think that's one of the problems with some of our organizations and corporations, is that they think they have it right, and then they stop trying, and they're not always applying the new knowledge to tweak and improve. I know. And
well, they need to listen. Yeah, and that's the thing. Who are they learning from? Did they just read the book? Did they go to conferences? And did they put that in a file cabinet and then just keep pulling it out? And the problem with that is, and we see that, I've seen it personally, we still have some people teaching how to manage challenging behaviors. Well, of course, that is so misguided, because they're saying that this challenging behavior, it's almost accusing the person who's living with a dementia. And maybe there wouldn't be what they call a challenging behavior if they had that quality of life again. You know, if they weren't woken too early for a shower. I mean, the list is endless. And then labels like wandering, I always push back on that, because if you think, I mean, most of us are wandering. If you forget where your car is at the airport, or if you need to go to the restroom and it's an unusual place, you're kind of wandering and looking like you're seeking and a little panicked. But then we don't put a label on you. But we do that. You know, they may be wandering up and down a hallway because they're stiff, or maybe they just don't like sitting next to somebody in the day room or in the TV room. And there's 100 reasons why somebody could be walking. And not. So I try, but I have to be careful, you know, to kind of break those labels. But as I say, people that have been doing this a long time, they're still saying how to manage challenging behaviors, and then they give you the list. It's like you may have created them.
Well, exactly. A lot of times, you know, they were perfectly fine till we walked in the room, and they just mirrored back our behavior that we think we're hiding, and they're reading our nonverbals. And Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I have a book by oh gosh, Geert Bettinger from the Netherlands, and I think the title of the book is um, moving for is it standing still to move forward, or moving forward to stand by standing still. But he talks about behaviors aren't behaviors, they're signals. They're signals to
Right.
say something is not right. And that applies not just to dementia, but basically all of life.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the mass shootings. Those are people that have reached out for help in the only way they know how, and set signals, but they've been missed, and
Right.
repeatedly. And we have to, so much of this stuff we can fix. It can be little stuff like temperature control, or volume, or lighting, or texture of food, or taste. I mean, it's so many little minor things if we would just pay attention to it.
And that's it. And we have to keep, and that's going back to what we said before, it isn't just a list of 1 through 10 of things we'll teach. That's why these workshops here are so valuable, because a couple of these gentlemen and some of the staff too, we talked about this very subject, the labels. And you could see that they were relieved. Oh, good, we're going to have that conversation. And a couple of them emailed me and said, we can't, when we do these workshops and we have these discussions, we've kind of stayed quiet on this, and we didn't like that. So it opens a dialogue for them. They can say, no, let's not do that, But this is where it's another subject for another day. I mean, that's where all the drug interventions come, and we've got to fix this. But just, just make folks, like you said. But recently I saw a situation where this lady didn't like the person, so she got up and she kept circling around and checking. I kind of did a little bit of mapping of her, really, I suppose. And she came back, and as soon as the lady had moved for whatever reason, she came back to her seat and looked relaxed and happy to carry on enjoying her time. And the sunlight was coming in. It was a lovely day coming into the day room, but she didn't want to sit there because of the person next to her thought she did nothing wrong. She was doing something quite normal, just avoiding the situation. So I think it's good that we need to get that message out. Let's just hit the reset button and just think as a person.
Yeah. No, I can't believe we've been yapping for 45 minutes already. And I really wanted to talk about your trip back home in May, where you went and saw the Dementia Village. And if you can tell people, because I'm sure we'll have listeners that don't know what's a Dementia Village and how is it different from what we have here in America?
Oh, yeah, great question. Well, I go home every year, and then I'd seen, and some of the listeners and many people probably have heard of Dementia Village, Hogewey. Many have not, because they're not really in the field of aging support and so on. But Hogewey is spelled Hogewey, so they can Google that. And there's a lot of information in YouTube. I first heard of it when I was watching CNN a few years ago, and Sanjay Gupta, who's kind of the global guy going everywhere, Dr. Gupta, and he visited, and I was really impressed and was thinking, I wish we could do that here. And there are places throughout the world. Australia has just opened one, Canada has 2, and I believe there's a group in Florida, and certainly in England they're trying. But Hogewey has been there a couple of decades, and they call it Dementia Village. And it's not a village freestanding on its own. It's a village, they call it that because it's a pleasant name. It's actually in the village of Weesp, W-E-E-S-P, which isn't far from Amsterdam. And the story was kind of, the beginning of it was sad, but it has to be said. One of the founders is still there, and I think she's a consultant and travels and that kind of thing. And I was lucky when I went, she did the tour of the place. She was an administrator of the nursing home, and her father died suddenly. And one of the things, as sad as she was, she expressed relief. Oh, well, he doesn't have to go to a nursing home. So then she felt guilt for the people she supported, thinking. So that's how it started. So it is government funded, and they raised a lot of money. most of the money was raised through the government, and then they needed a few more million, and they managed to do that with, I guess, the citizens around Amsterdam. And so it took a while, I'm sure, but it's only on, it seems much bigger. If you look at the YouTube, it's only on about 4 acres, but it seems so big. So the periphery is very secure, but inside, and it's locked down, which for want of a better word, but inside, they won't let you use the word wander. They talk about roaming. So I had that conversation with her, and I said, I know we still talk about wandering, should roaming. But if you look at roaming and wandering, they kind of have similar dictionary definitions, but one has a negative, but roaming seems like, I'm roaming, I'm going to have some fun. They have a lot of outdoor spaces. They have 200 volunteers. It's a privilege to work there. The essence of it is that instead of all being housed, 60 residents in one place, it's split into 23 different houses, and each house has its own staff. They don't wear uniforms, and they call them villagers. They're trained and they're certified, and they have general areas, like there's a theatre, there's a beautiful, many different restaurants inside, there's a cinema, there's beautiful outdoor spaces that they can get coffee and so on, and they can have their meals in their house, and they prepare them themselves. They have their own kitchen, or they can go to the restaurants. It's government funded, and the people who move there, there's a separate selection committee. So there isn't a marketing team or a moving type coordinator. People who come there, I'm sure there's a process. They find out all about them and their background. They match people. So people living in one particular house, it will have a theme. There's one that's an Indonesian theme. Holland, obviously, the Netherlands is very much like England. Back in the day, they had empires and colonies and so on. So there's a lot of reparation. So quite a big population of Indonesian. Then they have more urban for the people who've always lived in the city. So that's a different style. And then it's Europe. So they do have what they call more like the aristocratic house. It's a little fancier with chandeliers. And the staff are not so much friends or villagers. They actually do behave more like a servant or a maid. That's what those people are used to. But that may change in time. So the themes, it's wonderful. And I just, people, when you go into the areas and walk around, you sometimes don't know who the staff are and who's living with the dementia, which is good. That's a success, So that's it in a nutshell. Have we got time to talk any more about it?
Yep, we sure can. We sure can, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think what happened.
Yeah, I think it's just such an important concept. And I remember having a conversation when it first hit like 60 Minutes on LinkedIn with a bunch of professionals and a bunch of experts. And there was a big brouhaha about this concept. And I was shocked because there were some people that were attacking the concept, saying, well, it's not right because staff are lying to the people. They're playing a role. They're really not a chef. They're really not a checkout clerk. They're a CNA or, whatever it is. And then I just laughed and I said, well, how many roles do you play? How many hats do you wear? You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a teacher, you're an educator, you're a friend, I said, that's the roles we play in life. If I have a child, all of a sudden I'm behind a concession stand, and that's not my real job, but I'm going to step in and help and do the job. And I was shocked that there was this nitpicking over this appeared to honesty thing. And I said, it isn't about lying. It's about comfort. It's about freedom. It's about independence. And
that's so sad. Yeah, that's sad.
But it was a good conversation that just, I think, again, when you were talking about sometimes people getting stuck in ruts in terms of they have all the answers and they've shut the door on other ways. And we ended up changing their mind through the conversation, because it was it was at least a respectful conversation to agree to disagree. But then people did change their minds and go, oh, I see it. It is about comfort. It is about their control, not our control. And
that's right. And those front lines. What I noticed immediately, they are CNAs, and it depends which house they're with. There's consistent assignments, so there's great friendships that are formed, and everybody's comfortable in their role. They are the experts, so they'll have what we call the collaborative care meetings. But the CNA is very front and center in that meeting, which we don't really have here. We kind of refer to them, or very rarely do we defer, but they're very much in the a lead position, which is exactly what it should be. It's a living situation. It's about their social life. And yes, if there are medical issues, there's a doctor on site. They can go out to the hospital. And there were little things like that. I don't know how it came up. I said, so when they go to the hospital, do you notify the family? And they said, no, they're one of the villagers who knows them goes with them and stays. So that is great, because there's going to be less disorientation. You're going to have somebody with them. Such a simple thing to do.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, that the volunteers, it's an honor for them to be there. In all the communities I've been at, it's always, you've got to rely on volunteers, and thinking, no, you should just hire a few more activity staff. Really, that's what you should do. But no, we rely on volunteers. But volunteers often come and go, but it's a constant flow, and there is retention. And it's kind of expected. The colleges, the local schools. So there's a lot of hustle and bustle, which at first I thought, but then I was judging too, think it doesn't have to be always quiet. Just because you have a diagnosis and you're age 80, you still want to live your life. But it's just normal life. And as I say, they can come and go, and families are so reassured. And they are not afraid to go there. A lot of families that I've met over the years, it's a chore to go and see their mother or the father because they're distressed by what they see. It's sad, but that's not the case so much at the Dementia Village.
Well, it sounds like, like here, and I might be wrong, but I think here people are going for volunteers, but they really want staff. They're short, and the responsibilities are sometimes some heavy lifting in volunteer roles. Where there, it sounds like they have some responsibility and authority, so that they can really truly get into the relationship mode. It's not just do this, because I think we are still very task oriented a lot of times with our volunteers. And we don't build that relationship or that opportunity that makes people want to stay and feel like they're getting something back out of it. Because nobody wants to.
Yeah, and I've talked to volunteers, and they say they've been ignored. They'll see people coming along, and they see people wearing their badges, and the staff need to acknowledge them, and it doesn't matter who they are, and they just think, they feel like they're just not important. Well, of course, they're hugely important. They're bringing some, they could be bringing a lot of one-on-one care to them, so somebody might just need to go for a walk. They're not into going to bingo, that kind of thing, if they're in a retirement community. And that's why more and more people, I've had this said to me lately, more and more people are pushing to stay in their homes. So that's why we're seeing a big growth in the home health care agencies. I don't blame them, they don't want to be institutionalized. So we have to, it's a learning curve, definitely. We need to encourage, like going back to the volunteers, they have a badge and they're invited to have lunch. They give them little perks, so they have a free lunch. And then they have annual parties and recognition. But I just love the way it's expected of them, and they're going to stand up and do it. This is our village, and these are our people, and we're going to do that. We're going to care for.
That's what we do for one another. Yeah, that's part of our role. And here, a lot of times it's looked down upon. We're more of a me society. than a we society, and I think that that's hurt us greatly on a lot of levels. I like the concept too, where they're interviewing people to fit in their own community. So again, they're maximizing comfort and not to, you don't want to say stereotype things, but to me, comfort is one of the most critical pieces when we're dealing with dementia, is making sure that people are safe, happy, and pain-free, and to me, that adds up to comfort. And
it is more normal too. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's a normal existence, because also, if you think of our retirement communities, and I've been part of this too, we have a calendar of events that's posted on a wall that we have to have, because the regulations usually say that, because you want engagement. But how do you know at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 1:30 that certain people want to do this? So we're measured by the participation, and I speak to a lot of activity and recreation staff, and I've worked in that position too. We're measured that, and it's our success. How many people did you have participating? Whereas in Hogewey Village, that's not the way it is at all. There is no general calendar unless it's a special event and there's a concert going on, or they have a fair happening that day, or the pet therapies, and so they have these communal areas. But during the day, it's you and your CNA, with your small group, and you'll be going off to different things. You could have a lot of doctor's appointments that day, but if you feel like doing something, you're never going to be encouraged to go and do something that you really don't want to do, just so you're engaged or participating. So that's great. So they know who, and one lady was saying to me that worked in one of the houses, she said a lot of the residents, they're here in these houses, but they actually only see each other in the evenings and at meal times, because they're busy doing different things during the day.
Sure.
And I love that. I thought, that's what I want. I don't want to be coaxed, or because we don't want you in your room, so you've got to come and do this, it'll be fun. But perhaps it won't be fun. So I often wondered, some of our residents, are they just doing it to keep us happy? Are they just pretending? I think that happened. So that was one huge piece, and I thought, how can I make that work, or how can we make that work stateside? But of course, that would need to be a huge reset button, because it's part of regulations. You have a calendar of activities, and so. But I think it's doable, because we also are Centers for Medicaid, all people who regulate us, they do introduce person-centered language now into the assessments and the way they monitor us. So we can say, well, there's nothing that day on that calendar that these two people want to do. So, it might just be planting a seed of doubt with them, but we'll see. But they have it organized.
Well, and I think some of it is for staff and for businesses to take a proactive stance in their charting of what it is they do enjoy. Like this person was really enjoying just listening to the birds and sitting out in the shade, relaxing.
Right.
It, was very attentive and very peaceful. And that's an activity. I mean, we all do that, it's
right.
We like to relax and rejuvenate. And, that is super healthy for any of our brain activity, is to have some slow time. Know?
Yeah, exactly.
And yet I've not once ever seen that being charted. As a priority. And it really should be, especially with the research that's coming out now, that people need more sleep, and that, meditation and quiet time is really seeing some benefits. And so I think there has to be proactive steps in terms of that as well.
And we're up against it though, because staff, CNAs, or the recreation staff and the activity, they are, I've seen it in action, they're judging that, because we have craft rooms, and if that room's empty, that means, oh, big fail, you've nothing going on in there. But they could be actually out doing a walk, or out sitting outside doing something nice, preparing bird feeders. I've seen this, and it's like, well, I can't be in two places at once. So that's why we do need more staff. And not everybody likes crafts. So, you could say, well, just cram everybody into the activity room. So, and families sometimes also, as long as mom's out of the room, they don't care what she's doing, as long as she's out of the room. So it's sad. It does need reorganization, and we do need support. And I'm a firm believer, and we've been taught this for a long time, but I don't see it too much, that all the staff should be engaged. The CNAs have things to do, but there are times when they can, like some of the Montessori products, like there's something called a reading round table. That's nice because you can have a small group of people with a CNA, and guess what? The CNA gets to sit down and be quiet and rest with them in a nice way. And that's definitely one of the tools I discovered through Cameron Camp, referred me to a website, Reading Roundtable. I had great success with that. And it's a normal thing to do. Also, I worry about things that we do that are too childish. Just sitting together reading about Amelia Earhart or someone like that, that's quite an adult occupation or pursuit. Mm-hmm. But I think we have a long way to go, don't we, really?
Yeah.
We do our best.
My daughter is an activities gal, and she hears all the time, we have to have these big activities, and big isn't best for everybody with dementia. And you could paint like one woman's nails and have the rest of them sitting around like they did in a beauty shop chatting while one person is being served, and that is still to me a very valid connective activity. In community, yet it's not always looked at as one. So it's very interesting. I would love to see one here in the States. Now, did you say that there was a dementia village in the States here?
I know Canada. I'd heard there was talk in Florida, a group in Florida that are wanting to start. I don't have the name on the tip of my tongue. So I want to reach out to them.
Joy Goodwin is the one who is kind of heading up. She wants to get something similar in Florida, but her concept includes where the spouse can live with the person with dementia, because she really feels that they could bring the costs way down, and they could, and then that would allow them to maintain their relationship and support one another with that. And I know there was one trying to get off the ground in California, but then I think that fell through there. But it's interesting to see the different models.
And they can be adapted. There's one, as I say, I was interested because I met one of the people there, and I thought I'll keep an eye on this online. And it's in Tasmania, and I noticed, and I thought it was kind of tore at my heartstrings a little bit. They've built it, but it isn't quite as big. They must have thought we're not quite ready for that number. So I think they may serve 90 people and not the 124, 150.
Okay.
I've forgotten the numbers, but it's going to be smaller. But they certainly, and I guess the people in Hogewey are very interested to influence. And I think it actually, it brings in some income, because the consulting, they do charge a fee. It's not too much, as far as I know. But if they come over here, I'm sure they would. But it's great because they're proud of what they have. And certainly it feels, sometimes the feel of the place just feels good. And just reassuring, if you're the son or the daughter and you think your mom or your dad's living there, or your spouse, you're going to feel so confident and think, well, okay, I can live my life somewhat. I know that they're happy, because I've seen many family members who camp out in retirement communities because they don't trust what's going on, and not enough is, it's not neglect, but I mean, they just think they're not having the life they really need, so they come to supplement it. Well, wouldn't it be nice if they could be happy where mum and dad is, and they know that they're fulfilled as much as they can be, and they can still live their life?
Exactly.
But we have some ways to go. Yeah, but I feel for your daughter, because that's difficult, but we do have to somehow persuade people not to measure, and these group activities, they're not suited to everyone. And I feel that as generations change, like the baby boomers now, as they age, and if some, we don't have a cure, there's going to be different needs and wants. They're maybe not going to just be as amenable or agreeing to go along.
I agree.
With activity,
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
polite how I say that. But I've had a minister, I remember an administrator, it wasn't that long, hopefully he doesn't listen to this, but he said, I want them to be doing more. And I'm thinking, it's not the amount of things. You don't need an activity every 30 minutes. And there doesn't have to be hustle and bustle. As you age, you do kind of slow down in some ways, some of us. So, you adapt with change. So it's quality, not quantity. But if you don't have the empathy, if you don't get it, well,
Yep, then that makes it tough.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. Is there anything else that you wanted our audience to know before we wrap up here?
No, I think we didn't talk about my other part of my job, which isn't the exciting part, although I may get into trouble. I do also train staff, so it isn't going into the families, but to become certified dementia practitioners. So I need to give a shout out for the National Council for Certified Dementia Practitioners. And I do one-day seminars, and they get the CUs, and then they're on track. They have to have experience. But I deliver just a part of the track by giving them the seminar and the certificate, and then they have to have, depends on their qualifications and their level of experience, they can go on to be CDPs. What I like about that is the CDP, if they qualify and they get that, it's not that expensive to achieve it. It's a nice addition to the CNAs. A lot of CNAs don't have letters after their name. A lot of them haven't gone off to do their masters. They're not RN, but they can actually put CDP. And I like that. It gives them confidence. It gives the community and the families and the people they serve confidence that, they've got some credentials here. And hopefully it's a nice bargaining chip as they move on in their career. So I like doing that, but it's a kind of a long day. It's just delivering the longest overview of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, but it's a useful service. So I'm glad I do that. But I do those every month or so.
Okay.
But the other stuff is a bit more exciting, the workshops.
And now when you do those, are those just local, or will you travel around to do those staff trainings?
Which the CDP. I do them locally because the NCCDP, there's a website, nccdp.org. They have trainers everywhere throughout America and actually internationally too. So they're based, I think their corporate office is in New Jersey. When you become a trainer, one of their board, I like this, before you're a trainer, you have to go through their rigorous training. And then once you become a trainer, usually a lot of people, if you go on their website, they're willing to travel anywhere. But I don't, because I'm never asked to, and I have enough to do here in this local area. There's one coming up on the 15th, and that's quite a cross section of people. I like small classes. I think I'm going to have about 12. And then I'm doing one in-house for a company, a home health care agency, and they want to train some of their staff. And I know it's not just for the knowledge. I think it's just so that they have that credential and they can actually say that to the, possible clients. It would give me confidence, thinking, well, they have a groundwork. They seem a nice person. They seem open to knowing what, but also they have that knowledge base. That's important.
Okay.
So I do that as well.
Wonderful. Now, people can reach you on your website, and do you want to give them that address?
Yeah, no, it's Burrow, www.burrowdementiatraining.com. So it's a long one, burrowdementiatraining.com. Or they can just use my email. I keep my email that I've had forever, and it's CAB, the word England, cabengland @AOL.com. I still use that.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an interesting conversation, and I wish you the best of luck. And I adore your approach to things and appreciate all that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Laurie. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a great conversation. Let's keep in touch.
Definitely, we will do that. I also want to just mention to our listeners a couple of organizations you might be interested in. One is the American Senior Magazine, which has, it's just a great magazine for reading and reminiscing. It's large print, great photography. Plus, they also have some active games there just to kind of keep your mind busy. And the Call Alert Center. So if you have somebody who might wander or roam, we never know when that is going to occur. You can go to the Call Alert Center, and you can actually get a discount if you go to our homepage and click on the CAC there. Just put in the code, but it's under $15 a year to be prepared. That way, if something would happen, you're not in a crisis where all of a sudden you are trying to remember how tall somebody is and how much do they weigh and what color are their eyes really and what was the license plate of the car. You're just set up and ready to go, and they shoot it out to they'll work with you and the police, and then they will shoot it out through the phone system and then set you up a flyer that is very easy to be able to go ahead and track and push out through social media. And then the other one would be the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. They just do a lot with holistic things. So if you're looking at diet and exercise, meditation, they've got some real good research-based meditation information there as well. So in the meantime, have a blessed week, and you can always find us at alzheimersspeaks.com. Check out our dementia chats where I interview people who actually are the true experts, those living with a diagnosis. Their insights are just profound, and those are available free on the site as well. Have a blessed week, everyone. Bye now.
Well, hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer's Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer's Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.